Hello and welcome. Alina and I are just back from the paddle court. What a lot of fun we have had playing with the GoPro Hero 10 and the new Insta360 1RS 1-inch edition, getting some really creative shots with both of these cameras. The question we want to answer that a lot of you are asking is, now we're getting better quality 360-degree cameras like this one, can this realistically replace a GoPro, a smartphone, or a normal camera when it comes to shooting normal video footage? So let's get into that now. Before we get into the creative filmmaking side of things, let's talk about some physical characteristics because they may or may not completely influence your decision for one system or the other. Both cameras are small, light, and as a consequence extremely portable, and for any use that we have put them to, it's been a draw in that respect. They've both been absolutely fantastic. However, there are some applications where you might prefer the even smaller and lighter form factor of the GoPro. For example, if you're attaching this to your bicycle helmet or something like that, it could feel a bit top heavy. It is a good bit heavier than the GoPro at the end of the day. So again, that's very much on a case-by-case scenario for you to decide whether or not that matters. In terms of durability, we have a huge difference. The GoPro is virtually indestructible, and if you do manage to damage this lens element, you can twist it off and replace it. By comparison, this Insta360 will be damaged if it falls over on this table. We've got these huge lens elements just waiting to be scratched. That would be an expensive repair. Now, yes, we might be able to get some covers here and protectors, but at the end of the day, this is not designed as an action camera. The camera itself will smash into 3 different pieces if you drop this from a great height. It's not what it's aimed at, so if you are looking at extreme action purposes where you're really going to put the camera in hazardous situations, probably best to go for the GoPro. The GoPro Hero 10 is waterproof. This new Insta360 camera is water resistant. If you did want a waterproof 360 camera, you'd need to get the Insta360 1X2. Great option, but a drop down in terms of picture quality. I think it's fair to say that in terms of physical attributes, the GoPro is far superior. It might not matter to you that this camera is not waterproof, it's not that durable, but at the end of the day, you'd rather it was. You'd rather have that protection and that peace of mind. Added to that, the onboard audio from these cameras, well, I have to say it is a lot better on the GoPro than it is on the Insta360, although if you do want good quality audio, you should really attach an external sound recorder of some sorts, like the DJI microphone system. Did I mention that the Insta360 camera is about twice the price of the GoPro? Right, okay, let's not linger on that. Why on earth would you buy this camera over this camera? It all comes down to the magic of being able to reframe your video footage after the event. As you know, the ability to reframe 360-degree footage has been around for a while with the likes of the Insta360 1X, the 1X2. The problem for more discerning or more demanding users, however, has been that by the time you crop in on that 360-degree image to get nice straight lines and natural field of view with no distortion, you end up with a very low resolution image, and it's normally a pretty low quality image because we're dealing with cameras with small sensors. Now, our previous content on this new camera from Insta360 has shown that the picture is very good. Even that cropped in, reframed image is very good. A complete transformation thanks to these 1-inch sensors. So that's why we're having this conversation today, even daring to compare this camera with a GoPro or a smartphone for that matter. If we compare picture quality, the GoPro's standard footage is of course far more resolution. It gives a nice crispy image. However, the reframed image that we get from this new Insta360 camera is more than acceptable when it comes to presenting it as normal footage, should we say. I think the shots in this video more than substantiate that. So if you want to learn the finer points of getting the best possible image from a 360 camera, do subscribe to the channel and stay tuned. In terms of shot variety and creative opportunity, the 360 system cannot be beaten. From any given recording, you can produce multiple takes of that shot with different framing, different angles, different camera moves that have all been placed on that footage in post-production. So this shot of Alina hitting the ball, for example, there's the finished result, but I'm able to go back to the same clip and get a behind-the-scenes take of me holding the camera. Or what about the shot of us both playing together? The camera's recording both sides of the net, so we can take a take of Alina and we can take a take of myself. We can also swing the camera around in post-production and get all creative with it. The only limitation here is your imagination, and this is why years ago I got so excited about these 360 cameras, and finally the technology is catching up to deliver the promised potential that we have with this system. In terms of ease of use when filming, both of these cameras start up very quickly. They have nice functional touchscreens that help you frame your shots, and they're just a joy to use in a run and gun environment. However, the ability to just stick that 360 camera anywhere, not care what way it's pointed, because you know it's filming everything and you can pick your framing after the event, is brilliant. It's extremely, extremely practical. By comparison with the GoPro, like any normal camera, you have to align that camera, make sure it's oriented as you like it, make sure your framing is as you want it to be. You can't go back after the event and just reframe that in post, but you can with a 360 camera. A downside of this system is you do have an extra step in post-production. You have to reframe that footage, probably in the Insta360 studio. You can use keyframes to move the camera about, and it's great fun and it's incredibly creative, but at the end of the day, it is still something that you have to do. That being said, however, the process of filming on the day was probably quicker. You probably didn't have multiple takes of the same shot because things went out of frame. You knew that you could recompose in post. Added to that, the Insta360 Studio has some great tools in it like Deep Track, which allows you to automatically have the camera track a moving subject. Something that we really missed on the Insta360 1RS 1-inch edition camera was slow motion frame rates at the highest quality resolution. We don't have that. The 6K footage that we get off this, which is all cropped all the way down to a much lower resolution by the time we're in a linear field of view, it's only available in the real-time frame rates of 24, 25 and 30 frames per second. If we want 48, 50, 60 frames per second, we need to drop down the resolution, and it's not really usable, to be honest with you. So this is a big loss, and it's a huge win for the GoPro. We get high quality resolution, 50 frames per second, 100 frames per second. We get good quality, 200, 240 frames per second on the GoPro. A huge win for the GoPro in terms of slow motion. In terms of stabilization, both cameras offer outstanding electronic image stabilization. It's the one thing that keeps dragging me back to GoPro, is that incredible hyper-smooth stabilization. Absolutely love it. Now with the 360-degree system, because it films everywhere, we have 6-axis stabilization. So the stabilization on this as well is just out of this world. You can just hold this thing in your hand, waggle it about pretty much, and the results will be smooth. In terms of creating genuinely cinematic footage with the motion blur the eye is accustomed to seeing when watching high quality television and cinema, both of these cameras struggle, and the reason comes back to that electronic image stabilization. For that to work, the shutter speed has to be relatively high so there's no motion blur in that video. They have to eliminate that motion blur for the EIS to work, to realign all those frames, to do away with the camera shake. That's the complete opposite of what we're trying to achieve. We want that motion blur, but the cameras cannot work and cannot function, in terms of stabilization at least, if there is motion blur. If you put an ND filter on a GoPro to get your shutter speed down to double the frame rate to get that motion blur you're looking for, you'll get your motion blur, but you'll ruin your hypersmooth, and as a consequence you get a whole bunch of mushy footage and it all looks a little bit weird. Exactly the same happens here with the Insta360 camera, so it's just a limitation of the system, it's a limitation of electronic image stabilization. You're better looking to a smartphone, for example, which has some kind of optical image stabilization. You can put an ND filter on that, get your shutter speed down. We've got a video on that, check it out. A lot of people don't realize these things, and it does matter, but nonetheless, you can get cinematic footage, I would say, with either of these cameras, and in some instances, you can actually add motion blur in post. You can get mixed results, but it can help. But now you know the limitations of these systems, you can work with it accordingly. It's impossible for us to say which camera is best for your given set of requirements. All we can do is demonstrate the best possible results that you can get from either system and give you some information to help you along the way. GoPro, of course, you can get some amazing footage, but I think what's come as a little bit of a surprise is the quality of the image that we are getting from this new Insta360 camera. When you see it on the screen there, you don't really automatically know that that came from a 360 camera. There's no alarm bells because of poor resolution and poor picture quality. It looks great, and then throw in all the creative opportunities. I, for one, am very excited about this system. It is, however, a lot more expensive. It's not as robust as a GoPro, so on and so forth. So do with that information as you wish. I hope you find it helpful. However, leave your comments below. Stay tuned on the channel. Lots more great content coming soon, and we will see you next time.